I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual.
起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬、再鞠躬、三鞠躬，参加各位点传世一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
So hello, everyone. It's wonderful to speak with you all again today on this wonderful Easter Sunday. And of course, as Derek said, today my presentation is lucky number, and of course that's day 13 of the Tao of Joy Every Day. And the subtitle I've chosen for this presentation is We Get to Make Our Own Luck. And, you know, it's interesting how often what Bill talks about, he'll bring up a point that segues very well into what I'm going to talk about. And his perspective on the dandelion, a lot of what I'm going to say is going to echo that in some ways as the perspective on luckiness and unluckiness in the context of what Derek wrote in his wonderful book for the 13th day. Okay, so I want to start off by talking about the 13th floor of buildings. And the reason why I want to do that is because I think it makes a good illustration of just how much this idea of luck or unluckiness or superstition permeates our culture. I don't know if it permeates other cultures as much. I'm not versed on that. I'm versed on this culture. But I can tell you I'm always surprised when I'm in a building of a skyscraper, and I used to work in two different ones. The last company I worked for, it was at a facility with twin skyscrapers, and we were on the 5th floor of our office was on the 5th floor of one building, and we ended up moving because I think we got cheaper rent at the other building, so we moved to the 8th floor of the other building. But both of those skyscrapers had 20-something floors, I believe. And of course, sure enough, there was no 13th floor. Of course, there was a 13th floor, but it wasn't designated as the 13th floor. It was designated as the 14th floor. 13 was just skipped. And this is a fairly common occurrence. I encounter this quite a bit. Not always. Some buildings will list the 13th floor as the 13th floor. But it just goes to show how entrenched these ideas of lucky and unlucky numbers are in the culture. And how seriously some people take it. And what it does, what it can do. It's very fear-based, really. This fear that the number 13 is somehow bad. And Derek points this out. I didn't know. And of course, I remembered it when I reread the chapter in preparation. But, you know, there's an actual phobia of the number 13. I wasn't aware of that. Or I'd forgotten. But it really does come down to perspective. Are you going to look at the number 13 as either unlucky or lucky? 13 happened to be, it makes me think of my mother, because it was oddly enough her lucky number, despite the fact that she was actually a pretty superstitious person as people go. And somehow I did not inherit that, because have never really been quite like that. But I do see it in quite a lot. I even at work with numbers, oftentimes an invoice will come up and it'll be $666 or $6.66 or something like that. And I've seen this happen many times. There are customers who will literally take something off the invoice, or something that they needed, they'll take off the invoice, or they'll add something that they didn't need so that the number gets changed and isn't 666. I guess that's because of the fear, that number, I guess, is associated with the devil somehow, and that makes them fearful. And oftentimes I see people rejoice if they hit like 777 or something like that. 7, I guess, is viewed as a lucky number somehow. And it's just funny. The idea is, to me, it's funny. The idea is that we latch on to lucky numbers, whether numbers are lucky, and brings up a larger context of how you look at your life. Do you look at your life as lucky or unlucky, or neither? And it really does come down to perspective, how we look at things plays a big role. And of course, reality is what reality is. In the context of the skyscraper example, there's still a 13th floor. It's just designated as the 14th floor. Is it the designation that makes it unlucky? Or is it the fact that it's 13th floor itself? It's such a ridiculous premise to me. But there are people who take that very seriously. Enough to where it makes you wonder, like, is there a building code in certain areas that you can't have a 13th floor? I don't know. It's a curious thing, but it just goes to show you just how much an idea like that can permeate this culture, and probably other cultures too. My guess is that there's superstitions that are maybe different in other cultures, and maybe some are the same. My guess is probably every human culture has some superstition in it. So numbers, are they lucky or are they otherwise? Well, I mean, to me, numbers are valuable, and certainly when it comes to what number you're going to get at a roll of the dice, say, well, a lot of it is probability. And does probability work? Well, ask a casino owner. Absolutely, probability works. It's not luck or unlucky. It's not lucky or unlucky in a casino. And the casino owners or investors, they're willing to bet real money on that probability, because they know, regardless of the outcome of any one roll of the dice or draw of the cards or spin of the roulette wheel or whatever, or spin of the slot machine wheels, whatever the single outcome is, they know over the course of the many spins and rolls and draws of the cards that they're mathematically guaranteed to come out ahead. There's really not much luck involved at all, really, when you look at it in that greater context. So what is the Tao perspective on this? I entitled this, we get to make our own luck. What did I mean by that? Well, basically what I meant is this. One of the most appealing things about the Tao for me is the way it allows you or anyone to take control of their own life, to not be imprisoned by an unlucky perspective. Or maybe equally annoying might be someone who's one of those people who goes overboard with, I'm so lucky, and they go around dotting their eyes with little happy faces. I guess I shouldn't be mean about being positive. There's nothing wrong with being positive. But it's funny, lucky, unlucky. What does all that really mean? When you strive to be present in the moment, there really isn't luck in the moment. Often the concept of luck is, and I think this is human nature, you focus on the bad luck of the past, or maybe you hope for the good luck of the future, or maybe you fear the bad luck that could possibly come in the future. But when you live in the moment, lucky, unlucky, doesn't matter. The fact that you're there in every moment of your life, that's where all the joy is. That's where all the luck is. in the calm reality of being. The luck of being alive today, the luck of waking up and seeing the sunrise. I can find good luck almost in any situation these days. If tomorrow on the way to work, my car broke down, I could find the good luck of the fact that I even had a car to begin with. That I have a mechanic that I trust that I know will fix it for me. That I have AAA, I can call them and they'll tow me where I need to go. If I get to work and it's a typical Monday and something happens with the system, we can't process everything we need to do for the business on Monday. Well, I've been in those situations before. I kind of know what to do. Every problem might be a little unique, but I feel lucky in the fact that, hey, it's job security. There's something urgent to do. That's a good thing. I'll work together with the people I work with and we'll come up with solutions. I can find the good luck in almost anything these days. But it wasn't always so. Often, I actively looked for the bad luck and found it in spades. So perspective has a lot to do with the luck and unluckiness. In the present moment of your life, if you're there, if you're present, if you're experiencing life moment to moment, luck doesn't even come across the landscape. It's just what is. And that's the wonderful thing about the Tao is it is about being calmly in the moment, being present in the moment of your own life. Not fretting about the past, not worrying about the future, but with confidence knowing that being in the moment, you can handle the moment, whatever that moment is, good or bad. And of course, good or bad are the descriptions we put on things. Like Derek said, you can see the glass as half full or half empty, or you can drink the essence of it and sustain your life. And that's really what living in the moment is. That's how you find the most happiness, is when you're in the moment, the present moment. You know, it's funny when I see people enthralled in fear over things that really there's no need to be fearful of. I often think of my mother because she was extremely superstitious. But interestingly enough, at the end of her life, and I remember this because it was about 2 weeks before she took ill with cancer. It was Halloween night. And it was the reason I remember it is the last night I ever went trick-or-treating. And when I came home, I'll never forget the image of her sitting on the couch wearing a witch's hat. And I walked in the door and we talked. And she told me that an insurance salesman had come to the door and sold her a life insurance policy that would pay off the house if she died. And I looked at her, I said, really? I go, you let him in, huh? Because one of her superstitions was that if a salesman ever comes to the door to sell you a life insurance policy, it means you're going to die. And so I teased her. Well, here's an interesting story, and I don't attribute this to luck at all, and I don't know whether she did or not. But 2 weeks after that, she took the physical and passed with flying colors. And a week or so after that, she became symptomatic and had sort of like a stomach flu thing going on, which I didn't think much of because, well, she bounced back from illness pretty quickly usually. But not this time. It turned out it was cancer. And 4 months later, she passed away. Now, it wasn't because the shirt salesman came to the door. It was her time. And I can't say, well, wow, that was good fortune for me because it paid the house off, and which was ultimately sold. And my sister and I was able to start out life with no, my sister's 6 years older, but I was able to start off with some money to be able to afford college and so forth. You'd look at it as lucky that way, but I don't. I would have much rather had my mother be alive today. But I don't consider that she's not here unlucky. What I consider lucky is that I had her as a mother to begin with, warts and all. The experience of being her child was well worth it and well cherished. And so life is there for us to cherish the good and the bad, the lucky and the unlucky. And it's all in how you look at it. And that's why I say we get to make our own luck. The Tao is about taking control of your own life, your own perspectives, your own behavior, your own attitude. And so much of that shapes how your life unfolds. And it's really the Tao teachings that teach us this. It's not about some external force visiting good luck upon you. No, really, the good luck comes from within you, how you're going to look at it. Life is an incredible gift, and none of us know how much we have left to live. So every moment that we get is such an incredible treasure. And the Tao really helped me understand that. Dandelions, are they good or bad? Oh, it's all on how you look at it. Such a great point Bill made in the context of the dandelion. Okay, so I'm going to start to sum it up here, if I can. Superstition still permeates Western culture. Elevator control panels often lack a number 13. Bizarrely, we often designate the 13th floor as the 14th floor. Practices like this reveal our irrational fears. The reality of it is that numbers are neither lucky or unlucky and have nothing to do with how lucky or unlucky we perceive that we are. And it's important that we emphasize that phrase, we perceive. Perception is something that we color to some degree, and it's unique to us as well. We all know in the ballpark what red looks like, but you can never know specifically what red looks like to me, and I can never know specifically what red looks like to you. To some degree, that's colored by your mind. And so too it is with lucky, unlucky. How are we going to perceive what happens in our life? Because I submit you can find luckiness or unluckiness in anything that happens. It's all in how you look at it. Tao cultivators are free from the shackles of these crazy ideas about numbers like 13 or 666 or 7 or any other number that can be arbitrarily chosen to be lucky or unlucky. Following the Tao teachings means you don't have to worry about stuff like this. Instead, you just live in the moment and put the teachings into action. We have control over our internal life. If we calmly live in the present moment, The good luck that comes from cultivating that skill will radiate outward to the external world and can often appear as wonderful luck. In reality, your acceptance of the moment will allow you to make the most of any moment of your life. Good situations, bad situations, lucky situations, unlucky situations, doesn't matter. What matters is how you face it. That's what you have control over. The Tao, or life, reigns on the good and the bad. The sun shines on the good and the bad. It's the living itself that's so important. And even the suffering, even the death that we eventually will all face, even that, the experience of that, likely has something to teach us too. Last week, Derek talked about, doesn't make sense that this life should be wasteful, that when we die, we start over. You know, we have to start over. I mean, to some degree, yeah, I guess we do probably have to start over. I have it on authority from my parents that I didn't know how to walk and talk at birth. That's something I learned. If I was here in a past life, well, I'm guessing I knew how to walk and talk. But at the same time, I understood Derek's point. Nothing goes to waste. Life is a gift, and it took me a long time to realize and appreciate that gift. So my message today is, luck doesn't matter. What does matter is experiencing the moment in calm happiness. Okay, so like always, I want to end with a book recommendation, The Tao of Joy Every Day, a great book to use daily to help one study and learn the Tao teachings and put them into action. So there it was, a lucky number, day 13. We get to make our own luck. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. I hope I said something that was of use, and I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday.
Thank you so much, Alex. I have to say that this whole thing surrounding the number 13 has got to be one of my favorite topics. Alex, may I request that we see your awesome summary screen?
Oh, absolutely, sir. Yeah, let me get that back up here. There we go.
Cool. Yeah, so like I said, this is one of my favorite topics. There's, and you are right, there's a specific word for that. It's Triskaidaphobia. It's actually not that hard to remember. All you got to do is to know that it comes from the Greek, and tris will be 3, kai will be and, A-N-D, deca will be 10. So Triskaideca will be 3 and 10, which is 13, and then phobia. So Triskaidaphobia is the fear of the number 13. It actually becomes even more convoluted than that, but I think I'll stop there. There is also a specific word for the fear of Friday the 13th, and that's where you bring in Frigga. Frigga is the Norse goddess after whom the name Friday is named after the goddess Frigga or Freya. So Frigga Triskaidaphobia is the fear of Friday the 13th. There are people who travel around the country to look at different buildings to see, if it's a building that's taller than 13 floors, then they want to take a look at the elevator panel to see how it is. And there are people whose hobby it is to take a photo of that to see that, the number 13 has been skipped. And then you jump right to 14 from 12. And I have read that there are buildings where they have a 13th floor, but it's not accessible by elevator. It's blocked off for normal access, and it's the place where they put heavy machinery.
and sometimes perhaps, equipment having to do with the building itself, the plumbing, the air conditioning, etc. So I actually meant to ask my friend Chris, because he's been working for many years on different buildings. So I'm kind of curious if he has ever seen examples of buildings where the actual 13th floor is blocked off and reserved for heavy equipment. Okay. So my theory is that the reason that they don't have a number 13 on the elevator is because they activate the elevator button. So the same button. There's actually even the way that they arrange the elevator panel. So the people that I mentioned that travel around the country to take photos of the elevator panels, you can see that in some of them, they're designed so that the button will go from 1 to 12 in one column or row, and then in the next one, it goes from 14 to whatever else. So that way, because they break it up like that, it sort of like fools people into not noticing that there was no 13. So the extent to which we go to alleviate our fears of a simple number, I think is pretty incredible. It's pretty breathtaking all by itself. And
yeah, it always surprises me. Wendy and I laugh about it. It just amazes me that there's so many buildings with no 13th button.
Yeah, and and Chris makes a good point as well, that if you were the architect or the contractor, you're the builder of this tall building, and you're like, no, we have to break through our superstitious beliefs, and therefore we're going to have by God, we're going to have a 13th floor, and then you go around, looking for parts to put onto your elevators, and it's like, what? You guys don't make the number 13? Okay, I guess we need to come up with something else. And the whole idea of setting aside the 13th floor for housekeeping, for other equipment, inaccessible normally, is because that's to avoid the perception and the smart Alex who, no pun intended, who will look at a building like that skips number 13, and when they get to the 14th floor, they will say, we're really on the 13th floor, but they're fooling us by labeling it differently. Who do they think we are? So that's one approach that can encounter some sort of pushback. Now, in Tao cultivation, what I advocate for everyone is clarity. So it definitely pays to look into the historical origin on some of these superstitious beliefs. So in my own research on this topic, I looked into Friday the 13th, and of course, the first thing that I find is that it's a very successful horror film franchise. You have Jason, right? The killer with the hockey mask. He's the star of Friday the 13th horror movie franchise, and he spends every movie go around killing, I don't know, teenagers or something, killing everybody. So that's definitely very popular. It's a money maker. Now, at the same time, I also want to look back in history. So one of the things I read was that the whole origin of Friday the 13th comes from the historical event from all the way back in Friday, October 13th, in the year 1307. And it had to do with the Knights Templars. The Knights Templars back in those days were formed to protect Christians as they make their holy pilgrimage. So they were the Knights, quote unquote, the Knights of the Temple. They protected these Christians on their way there, on their way back. And because they traveled to all these different cities, by way of convenience, they also, did some trade. They also created a rudimentary banking system that you could entrust money to the Knights Templars, and they will keep it and deliver to someone else, or they will make a loan out of it to other people, etc. And so bottom line is that the Knights Templars became very wealthy, and this definitely caught the attention of the rulers back in those days. So historically, the ruler of France at that time became aware of the great wealth of the Templars and wanted to take that away from them for himself, and therefore he conspired with the Pope at the time, and that was the Pope Clement the Fifth, and I believe it was the king was might have been King Philip IV. Anyhow, they got together, they planned this attack, this ambush on the Knights Templars, and it took place. The bloody slaughter took place on Friday the 13th. So that being the case, when you know about the historical origin of why that's unlucky, then I hope that the realization is like a weight that's been lifted from you, because, you know, the sudden realization ought to be that, well, you know, I'm not a member of the Knights Templar, so Friday the 13th doesn't actually need to mean anything to me. So just because it's part of the culture ever since those days, you know, that doesn't affect me one way or another. And besides, the number 13, as Alex pointed out, it's just a number. You know, it's an interesting number. It's a prime number. It's a number that comes in handy in calculations. But other than that, it really doesn't have any cause to be the source of irrational fears. I also wanted to say that as we study the Tao, I want to caution everyone to not assume that because the Tao comes from Eastern sources, that, you know, the people of Asia are not subjected to this kind of irrational fears. Well, actually, the opposite is true. The people, the Asians, people from the other side of the globe, they are every bit as human as we are over here, subjected to the same irrational fears. So they just have a different set of numbers that they fear. And let me talk a little bit about the cultural aversions, the cultural lucky numbers and unlucky numbers for the Chinese. The number 4 in Chinese, in Mandarin, is 4. So when you count from 1 to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth number, 4. The character for death in Mandarin happens to be 4. So it's a little bit different from 4. But the sound is close enough that people associate the number 4 with death. 4 versus 4. Therefore, when it comes time to get you know, your driver's license, your car, and you know, the license plate on your car, people avoid the number 4 because they think that it's just an unlucky number that'll get them into accidents, you know, and not just any accident, but a deadly accident, an accident with fatality. Yeah. So for the same reason, when it comes to Chinese New Year, when you want to give out the quote unquote the lucky money, you want to you know, get the ones without the 4, the number 4. So what about the opposite way? What about the lucky numbers? Well, for the Chinese, and this is especially true in the southern parts of China, the number 8 is Ba, which rhymes with a character for being prosperous. Ba. So it's Ba versus Ba. So when you, in Chinese, in Mandarin, when you repeat a character 2 times, it's for extra emphasis. So Ba Ba 8 8 would be Fa Fa, which is even more auspicious, even luckier. And it also rhymes. It's also the same sound as the Mandarin for father, Baba. So August the 8th is Father's Day, but that's kind of a separate thing. Let me stick to the lucky part. So the Fa and Ba those become lucky numbers. So people want the number 8, for like the house number, apartment number, stuff like that. Well, let me tell everyone a true story about one of the places where I have worked. It's the largest bank in Southern California at the time. It was called IndyMac Bank. So IndyMac Bank, I got a job there. I was really happy with the big bank. That's what I wanted to do. I showed up at work and I noticed that the building, the headquarters building, the street number on that was 888, 888. So 555. That's really auspicious. That's really lucky. And I'm thinking to myself as I report to work, many years ago, I'm thinking, well, there's no luckier number than this. For all the banks in Southern California, I'm pretty sure this is the luckiest number, perhaps in the entire country. I don't know. Well, years later, in the mortgage crisis, this is back in 2007, what happened was that the security-backed mortgage-backed securities went belly up. It was a house of cards that collapsed upon itself. This particular bank with 888, as the prominently displayed number of its address, well, they were a specialist in that field, the mortgage-backed securities. So when that market collapsed, the bank did as well. And so literally federal agents came in to take the CEO away in chains. So the whole bank collapsed. And as I looked at our boss being led away, by the feds, I was thinking maybe there's nothing to this whole idea about 888 being lucky after all. So I just wanted to relay that to you to illustrate that just as, numbers cannot make you unlucky, they also cannot make you lucky. And this was a real life proof of that concept. So, Alex, thank you for taking me into this topic, one of my favorites, as I said. And
let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架深鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位顶传十一鞠躬，斜翻一鞠躬。Well done, everybody. Thank you so much.